Hello and welcome to Make It Happen episode number 30. Hello, I'm Ali Meehan, and today in the Make It Happen studio I have Lauren Cirkot. Lauren is currently living in Valencia. She's from America and she's a travel blogger. So we're going to hear about her and her adventures. Hi Lauren.
Hello, how are you?
Good, really good to see you. So Lauren is originally from Connecticut in America, but you're now living in Valencia.
Yeah.
So tell us a bit about your life to now.
Okay, so prior to moving to Valencia, I went to school for mass communications with a specialization in public relations and marketing. And from there, I entered the corporate world and I was doing social media marketing as well as digital marketing. I did that for about 6 years. And I also had my own music blog and business, and I designed t-shirts as well and had an online store. I sold that business and continued on with my career in digital marketing. And after 6 years, I started traveling and I decided that I really, really loved travel and I wanted to pursue the next stage of my life traveling. So, and also I was pretty stressed out and unhappy in my corporate life. So I was like, all right, I'm ready to make a move. And I went to Spain, to Barcelona with my best friend. And we decided that we wanted to move here. And so then we made it happen. And so now I am living in Valencia. And the reason why I'm living here is because she and I are part-time English teachers, and that's the program we're in to be able to have a visa and to live here. And on the side, I have my own business, which includes a travel blog and marketing consulting. And so here I am in Valencia.
Perfect, good. And you're very much about moving out of your comfort zone. So tell us when you think that first move happened for you personally.
Sure. So actually, every year I come up with goals at the beginning of the year, and I write them down on a piece of paper, so that I put it in a place that I see every day, because I don't know if you believe in the power of visualization or like just seeing and repetition. But for me, if I want something to happen, I have to write it down and then see it every day. So I have my list. And a few years back, maybe 3 or 4 years ago, one of the things that I put on my list was to step out of my comfort zone or conquer a fear every month for that year. And so to go along with it, I had made a chart with all of the months, and I had to keep myself accountable by writing down every month how I either stepped out of my comfort zone or conquered a fear, big or small. It didn't matter. It could have been as small as, I would take the same route every day to work. And then one day I was like, no, I'm going to go down a different street today. Something as small as that, or something as big as I'm going to go travel by myself somewhere, which I ended up doing. I ended up traveling solo to Australia, which was the big one. So it started there a few years ago, and every year I've put it on my list of goals, but instead of I have 2 sections of my goals. One is new things that I want to accomplish in a year, and the second half is continuing. So every year on the continuation part of my goals, I'm like, step out of your comfort zone. And so every month or every day, it's almost a lifestyle at this point, where I'm just always thinking about what little small thing can I change today that is different from yesterday? Or is there something that I'm afraid of doing? Let me challenge myself. So that's kind of where it all started. It was just a goal on a list.
I love that, and I love the idea of doing something every month that's completely, out of your comfort zone, and you could be scared about, or it could be a new challenge. I think that's an amazing goal to have. I might copy that. And
I would recommend it.
And I love the idea of just even going down taking the same route but in a different way, so following a different road. Because I think as expats, we can tend to stay in our own little comfort zone, and oh, well, that's the way that I always go to that particular place. But you find some real treasures if you drive down a different road or walk down a different road.
Yeah, you just never know. And it has never worked out in a negative way. It's always a positive outcome because you approach things differently. You have a new set of eyes, and there's no expectations other than whatever comes your way. And so it always turns out positively.
Yeah, I really like that. So what's been your favorite experience that you've found with this particular challenge that you've set yourself? And has travel made a lot of difference to your life?
Yeah, so to combine those two questions together, like I said before, one of the biggest comfort zone challenges I did that first year was traveling by myself. And it ended up being traveling to Australia, which was like, it's very far away for most of us.
Yeah.
I mean, it's far away from Spain, but it's also very far away from from where I was living in Connecticut. And so I had never traveled abroad that far. And also I had never traveled solo other than like a road trip here and there or something, but nothing. I mean, that's, if you're going to go big, I mean, that's kind of the trip you're going to go big on, I think. And so that happened to be one of the best experiences, I think, because what happened was that I was being called to Australia for some reason. Like this was the beginnings of me thinking about doing a travel blog. So I was scrolling through Instagram, and an advertisement came up about a travel blog boot camp where 3 people, an Instagrammer, a journalist, and a blogger, they were doing a seminar in Sydney, Australia. And I was like, oh, you know what? I'm thinking about blogging. I would like to go to a seminar, but going to Sydney from Connecticut, like, that's crazy. I know that the flights are super expensive. It's such a long trip. I don't think I could do it. And then it was just sign after sign. Like, I had, like, 2 days later, I found a flight for $750 round trip.
Wow.
And I was like, what? This is unheard of. And then I saw, I was reading a horoscope that was like, I forget what it was about, but it was basically like, there's something you're thinking about starting in your life. It's a big project and it's going to take a big leap. Go for it. And I love horoscopes, but my life doesn't depend upon them, obviously. Yeah. But that was like another sign. And there was a few other things. And I was like, all right, I'm just going to book this flight. I'm just going to do it. And so, yeah, that ended up being a really great experience because that's where I really started that new chapter in my life where I committed to travel blogging and creating a business that way. And also I was able to really step out of my comfort zone by traveling by myself, having to navigate everywhere, not having someone else to rely upon. I mean, I had it pretty easy because I went to another English-speaking country where people are really friendly. Like, the only, like, scary thing are, like, the spiders, you know what I mean? Like, but it was such an eye-opening experience for me because traveling solo really taught me that, like, I can rely on myself. Like, it's nice to have other people, and I will always travel with other people. I'm not just going to travel solo. But it just kind of solidified for me, like, yes, I can do this. I can pack by myself. I can survive a flight by myself. I can be in a new country and navigate and talk to people and make new friends and eat by myself. And it's like the world doesn't end if I eat by myself at a restaurant. You know what I mean? It's very liberating to experience something like that. And so now I recommend it to everyone. Not that I recommend everybody go to Australia on their first, but it was a really great place to go. I'll tell you that.
Yeah. What you don't know is that was my first ever travel trip on my own, was to Australia.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah. I actually have a family in Adelaide, but I lived for a while in Sydney. So
Wow.
yeah, and that was my first ever trip overseas on my own. Yeah.
I love that. How long ago was that?
That was about nearly 30 years ago now. So
Wow.
yeah, quite some time ago. But yeah, it does change you completely
Yeah.
traveling on your own or traveling overseas generally. But that was what started my love of living overseas in more ways than one. So yeah.
Wow, I love that.
And would you say that it's changed you? Because it's changed me living overseas. So would you say it's changed you? And if so, how?
Yeah, travel has definitely changed my life in big ways, including just becoming more patient with people, understanding, also becoming more social with other people. I've always been like a social person, but it's easy to be social when you're with your circle of friends. But when you're in a completely different country, as you probably know, you don't always know the customs, you don't know the right way to do things. You have to ask a lot of questions that you've never had to ask before. And it just, I think it taps into a different part of the brain and also a different part of your heart and your soul that you can't get unless you go to a place with a different culture. I mean, for me, staying in the US, there's obviously there people live differently from the two different coasts or from north to south. And so you kind of get that, but when like you come to say Europe, the history and the culture and the way people live their lives and the laws and the festivals and traditions, it's just so interesting. And when you learn about those sort of things, it opens you up as a person. And I have friends that either monetarily aren't able to travel right now or they have certain things going on with their lives, but by me even coming home and expressing what I've learned and sharing that information, it helps other people also become more tolerant. And I think it just, as a whole, like even if you physically can't do it yourself, if you know someone or if you're reading about a blog or you're watching a video, it helps people in general to just learn about other cultures. And another thing for me personally with travel is, I mean, I've learned that it's one of my passions. It's not just a hobby; it's a passion. I love writing about it. I love making itineraries for people. Like tomorrow, actually, my mom is coming into Spain for 10 days, and I spent hours and hours just coming up with an itinerary, like a daily itinerary for her, exactly what she needs to do, which tours, which restaurants, and that I like. Have you ever heard of like the flow state?
Yes, yeah,
Or when you're
yeah.
working. So when I'm researching and when I'm thinking about my other travels and I'm creating itineraries, I've that's something that I get it like gives me that flow state.
Yeah,
And that's travel has made that happen for me.
yeah, yeah. The
Yeah.
other incredible thing about you, which people probably don't know already, is that you've actually got an illness. So you're traveling with an illness as well. So
Yes.
you're going to have to tell me how to say it properly because I'm never going to be able to
Okay.
pronounce it. It's two very long words.
It's very difficult to
Yeah.
say.
So I'll just give it its short title, which is EOE.
Right.
So how has that actually affected your life, and did it worry you traveling with the illness? And just tell us how you actually pronounce it and what it is as well.
Sure. So I have EOE, which is pronounced eosinophilic esophagitis, and it's a disease of the throat. And so if you've ever had like a chip get stuck in your throat, you know how painful that
Yeah.
is. So think about that, but with many different foods. Like any food could do it to some people. I'm lucky enough right now that I I'm only sensitive to a handful of different foods, and then it's also triggered by stress. For some people, they can't swallow anything because their throat is just so inflamed. And what I describe is like it gets hard because the eosinophils or white blood cells flood your throat and they're not supposed to be there.
Okay.
So anytime there's a food that you're sensitive to or you have a reaction to, it floods your throat and it you can't swallow or things get lodged and stuck. So some people are on feeding tubes or they can only some especially children that are being diagnosed with it right now can only drink like the nutrition smoothies and things like that
Yeah.
because they just can't risk getting anything lodged in their throat. So one of the things, so I don't have a severe case of it. I'm able to manage it. And I was able to manage it through trial and error of different foods, and also working with a nutritionist to figure out exactly what the triggers were. Some people are on medicine as well, but I'm not. And so when I travel, what I do is, I know the foods that trigger me, and so I will always have to look up, if especially if it's in a different language in a country, I will look up, menus to make sure that I know if the ingredients I can have them, or I need to have phrases ready to go saying like, does this dish have XYZ? Does this dish have this? I'm allergic, or I can't have, just helpful phrases like that that I can ask the wait staff to make sure that I can avoid situations, or at least try to avoid situations where I might get it stuck. But also from experience, I'm also able to know like when I'm eating something new, I'm very careful with it. So I take a very little bite and then I, add more and more until I know I'm safe with it. But I chew it, and then by chewing it, it kind of like my throat is able to know whether or not it's good for me or not. And if I feel the reaction coming down, then I obviously don't swallow it. So anything that I try that's new, I have to do that procedure with. And other than that, I just know my triggers. So if I feel a reaction coming on, then I stop eating.
Okay.
But I haven't been in any countries where I haven't been able to ask the wait staff to clarify. Like, I haven't been to Thailand or anything where they speak a completely different language, although like I know a lot of people speak English there. But I haven't really run into any big problems yet. But it is always in the back of my mind. It's just a matter of being prepared and knowing how to deal with it, and it's a case-by-case basis.
Other women that are thinking about traveling, and maybe they have an illness, but they feel they shouldn't travel. Do you have any tips for women before they start packing their bags?
Sure. So obviously there are so many illnesses and diseases out there. It's a matter of just to having knowledge. It's a matter of knowing exactly what your illness is, talking to your doctor about um, what are the restrictions, what do they recommend, being prepared. Like if you know you're going to be on a long bus ride or something, making sure that you're able to accommodate that, or a long plane ride or things like that. Just being able to be prepared, having the knowledge, and also translating a few things, or even having like a medical card on you saying like, I have this illness. Um, this is how to deal with it, like just in case of an emergency,
Yeah.
and have it
Yeah.
translated into that country's language. So at least other people, if they find you in, medical need, they can help you somehow.
Okay. Yeah, no, that's good tips. And for women generally who are thinking about traveling and haven't taken the plunge, what would you say to them?
Well, the first thing I would say is that you deserve it. Like, a lot of people don't feel like they deserve the vacation, or that they have too much work, or they're hesitant to take the days off from work, or even just spend the money to take the vacation. But everyone deserves it. It's like the reason why you're given vacation days from work, or even if you're an entrepreneur like myself, giving yourself vacation days, is because you need to recharge. As humans, we need to recharge. We need to we need to, get our minds off of the things that we do every day and step out of that routine, so that when you come back, you can be refreshed. But also, you can bring a lot more to the table after traveling, or after taking a mental break and just getting some sun, or like exploring a new place. It's healthy for you, and you deserve it. So that's my first tip. My second tip is, for women that are hesitant about taking the plunge, it's really not as scary as you think. And if you don't have to do it solo. You can join a tour group and you can make a lot of friends. People are super friendly when they travel. Like, I haven't been on a tour with people that weren't friendly, because if everybody's on the same tour and they're all interested in the same place, you've got two things right there that give you common ground. So you're able to easily strike up conversations and make friends on trips. And then my last thing is, travel doesn't need to be this grand like this grand trip. Like you don't have to go all the way to Australia. You can just go an hour away and that's traveling, or you can go two cities over and that's traveling. And it's that little tiny step out of your comfort zone that you can build upon every time. And then, if one day you want to go to Europe, if you want to go to Australia, or you want to go to that exotic place and you're hesitant at first, once you've built it up, you're going to feel more comfortable just taking that leap instead of, oh, I've never traveled before, but I want to go to Thailand. Let me book the flight, but I'm really scared. If that's the case, start small and grow big. But if you want to take that leap, I've also done that. So I totally get it. There's no right or wrong answer to travel. And if anyone judges you for your trip, then they're really not your friend. You know what I mean? Like, do the travel that you want. There's no limit.
Yeah, yeah, no, I love that, and I like the idea of just taking small bites. So trying a little place an hour away, seeing how you get on, especially if you're traveling solo. That's quite a good way of doing it. So, what would be your advice for women traveling solo?
So for women traveling solo, so obviously we need to take some safety precautions. So, don't go out alone by yourself at night. No, what I like to do is I research, this is just for safety purposes. I always will research the cities where I go and know which neighborhoods are safe and which ones are, maybe not so safe. I also try to find some sort of contact, or I know where the embassies are, where the hospitals are. I also, that's just the safety side. The other part of that is when you're traveling solo, one of the things that I do is I will do day tours, or I will stay in a hostel, and they have activities where you can meet people so you don't have to feel so alone. And also, you want to go on a tour, it's great to go in a group and just for a day. And then another one is for traveling solo. It's going to be uncomfortable at first. It's always uncomfortable, but you have to get comfortable with being uncomfortable, and it's okay. Like when you're uncomfortable, nobody's going to even know. Like, for example, if you go out to eat by yourself, you think, oh, everybody's staring at me. They think I'm such a loner. Nobody is even looking at you. If they are, it's probably because they might want to talk to you and be your friend, not because they think you're lonely. So don't ever feel like people are going to sense how uncomfortable you feel in that situation.
Yeah.
But yeah, those are some of my tips.
Yeah, they're great tips. I think Spain is quite female friendly as far as eating alone is concerned.
Yes.
I think it's a great place to be if you are eating alone. And you're now living in Valencia.
Yes.
So why should we move there?
So Valencia is great. It's funny because I wanted to move to Barcelona. That was the original plan, and then I got assigned to teach here in Valencia. And so at first I was like, I don't know if I'm gonna like it as much as Barcelona, but everybody that I talked to was like, no, you're gonna love Valencia. And the reasons they told me are exactly why I love it. So I love Valencia because we have the beach, but we also have that metropolitan feel, but it doesn't feel so busy. It's still very slow paced. But you have the cool restaurants, the cool cafes, and all of the neighborhoods are very community oriented. Like I know my produce guy, I know my wax lady. Like it's not, you don't feel like a random person in the city. You feel like you're part of the community, and there are so many events and so many things to do here that you won't get bored. I also love the weather. It's really, really nice. Like especially today, I I was out in a t-shirt and jeans and sneakers. And it's kind of like this all year. It will either get really warm or like the coldest it'll get. You just need like a light winter jacket. It's really not that
Yeah,
bad.
yeah,
And then lastly, I love it because it's real, like the art and the architecture here is just, it's beautiful. You walk on a new street every day and you see this beautiful building, and then we have this beautiful park, the Turia Gardens, which is like 10 minutes from where I live, and you could spend hours there, or you can just go there for a picnic, and it's just so picturesque all over and charming, and you can never get bored of the charm here. So highly recommend Valencia.
good. Okay, good, good, good. So you'll have to apologise for the French pronunciation of this next quote, but toujours trouver l'aventure.
Yeah.
Was that not that bad? What does that mean to you?
So for me, it's the tattoo that I have on my back, and it means always find adventure. And so I got that on my back because this was prior to naming my travel blog this. I named my travel blog after my tattoo. But so my grandmother was French, and she spoke fluent French, and I took French in high school. And I always loved the French language. So I wanted to honor her by getting something in French on my back, but also the words always find adventure. It has such deep meaning for me. Like, it has multiple meanings. One of them being that, always find adventure, always find a new thing to do or a new way to get out of your comfort zone, or always go on a new trip, regardless if it's big or small. Just always be traveling and finding new things. But also, it can be applied to, maybe more negative things in life. If you go through a low point in your life, like I've struggled with anxiety and mental health, and instead of looking at it as a dark period, reframing that and saying it's an adventure, it automatically brings a different perspective to the situation, and it helps at least me get through the dark times, or just like little blips of time where it's, maybe not going the way that I want it to, and just, breathe it in and say, okay, this is an adventure. Just think of it as an adventure. And because, you'll get through it. It helps me get through things a little bit better, rather than saying, oh, I'm having a terrible time in my life right now.
Yeah, no, great. So talking about adventures, I'm waving my Make It Happen magic wand. What adventure can we make a reality for you?
So I have a few things this year that I want to get done, which is, I just turned 30 a couple weeks ago, and by the end of my 30th year, so next February, I hope to get to 30 countries. Right now I'm at 26.
Wow. Okay.
So fingers crossed. I have some plans in the works, so that's one of them. And then also, right now I'm in the start of my adventure in Spain. I just moved here in September, and I'm hoping to stay here for a few years or maybe a lifetime. Not really sure. I'm taking it year by year. But my next goal would be to come back to Spain on a non-lucrative entrepreneurial visa instead of teaching. Teaching is an easy way for me to have a visa here, and it's also a very easy, rewarding job. But I'd like to pursue my business and digital entrepreneurship in Spain full time. And that's what I'm working towards right now. So if you could just, wave your magic wand and do that for me right now, I'd be super happy.
Easy. Too easy. So how can people find out more about your adventures? How can they follow them? What's the best way to connect with you?
Sure. So there are two ways. I have a website. Actually, I have two websites. My personal website, laurencirkot.com, it'll give you an overview of what I do for my business, which is the marketing, the travel planning, and also my travel blog. I have alwaysfindadventure.com, which is my actual travel blog. And then I have my Instagram, which is kind of like a mini personal blog with all of my pictures from my travels. And you can contact me and find me in all of those places. And my Instagram handle is at Lauren Cirkot.
Perfect, Lauren, thank you. Well, thank you very much for talking to me. It's been really interesting to hear about your adventures, and we look forward to seeing more of what happens as you travel around the rest of those countries to get up to 30.
Well, I invite anyone else to come with me, so stay tuned in terms of what my plans are, and feel free to come along. I'm happy to have people.
Great, that's amazing. Thanks, Lauren.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. I hope you enjoyed this interview. If you're a woman who's living in Spain or a woman who's thinking about moving to Spain, come and join us at costawomen.com. It's completely free to join. Please also come and follow us on YouTube or listen to our recordings via Spotify. Just look for Costa Women Make It Happen.